I interned with the PR staff at the Kansas City Chiefs. And so I like right before y'all, like I just had like a whole meltdown. I was like, I don't want to go. Like, I'm gonna go be in a dorm the month before I start school. Like, I don't want to do that because at the Chiefs, they like all stay in a dorm. Like Coach Reed stays in a dorm, all the players stay in a dorm. Like it's just everybody. It's not just like you. And I was like, this is gonna be miserable. Like, I was like, I'm not doing this.
So, welcome everyone to Chalk Talks. I'm Maddox Robinson, and I'm here with my co-hosts Elizabeth, Kennedy, Ryan, and Greyson. This podcast brings you Clemson sports and stories from all different points of view. Today, for our third episode, I'm super excited to sit down with one of my really good friends and former Clemson student, now sadly turned UGA Dog Kennedy Farmer. We're going to be talking about what life is like to have transferred from one big name school to the next for their sports comm program, how they differ, her experience with working for UGA's football team, as well as her internships with some major NFL teams. We are super excited to have you on, Kennedy. How are you?
I'm good. How's everybody else doing? It's been a very cold week, so
Yes, rainy for sure.
yes, the weather's not pretty, but still going well.
Good. So just to like dive straight in, I guess. The first question I'm going to ask you is what sort of motivated your decision to transfer from Clemson to UGA? And then what factors made that transition challenging or rewarding?
So for me, my decision was based on a lot of different things, but ultimately, like I knew what I needed for myself in order to like go down the career path that I wanted to go, and that would benefit me like socially and academically. And it's not that Clemson didn't offer that, but UGA offered it in a unique way that was more suitable to my specific interests. And so I really was interested in Clemson's sports communication program, but I was in graphic communication when I got there. So trying to switch, it's very competitive, which
Yeah.
I'm sure some of you know, but like it was really competitive and I wasn't guaranteed to get into the program. So I was like, I'd rather not spend like another semester, another year trying to like fight for a spot when I could go to another university and gain kind of similar experiences. So that's why I made part of my decision to transfer to UGA. It just made more sense for me academically because that switch to the majors at Clemson is a little bit more strict and rigid. But
For
and
sure.
then, did I answer the challenges? Like, some challenges were like obviously I will say like I think that academically Clemson and UGA do differ a lot. But I will say that I'm a fan more of like Clemson professors, if I'm being so open, but I will say the coursework is very similar in the sense that it's challenging in a good way that helps you grow. But like it's definitely been an adjustment to come here and like learn a whole new system of like the system they don't use like Canvas. So like adjusting to that was a challenge. And then like just the way they present academics here is very different, but it still like challenges me in a way that like encourages me to learn. So
Awesome.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you that transferring into sports comm or comm is like so unbelievably difficult for no reason.
mhm.
I was in political science and had to come over, and it took dead ass probably a year and a half.
Yeah, I
Uh,
also switched into comm and it was a very difficult transition, so I can understand that as
I
well.
tried
yeah,
to
it's
switch
all
into comm and then I missed the deadline. So I just now I'm a psychology major. So
But you know,
there
that
you go.
works too in a variety of ways and how it relates to communication. I think it was just like it wasn't necessarily like that the program I would say is like super hard, but it was just so competitive and
yeah,
it's like everybody wants to be in it. And like I feel like that's a good sign that goes to show like how good of a program it really is. And like not a lot of universities actually offer that. Like UGA doesn't have a sports communication major. You can just do communication or you can do like sports journalism kind of, but I wanted to focus more on the communication side rather than like writing because that wasn't my personal interest. But I'm like currently doing a certificate, which is kind of the same thing as a minor at UGA, but it's a certificate for sports media. So it kind of like ties into the sports comm for me because I'm still completing like a minor. It's 18 total credits. So
Kind of piggybacking off of that, what are some behind the scenes things like for the recruiting process that you didn't realize you would get into, beginning your position?
so I think I had like this very set expectation of what it meant to be a recruit, like assistant intern. And so like were my expectations like the same as my reality? No, but it was like cool to adjust. I came in a weird time. I came in spring, so obviously football isn't like up and fully running at that time. So it's kind of harder to really understand what I would be doing, but there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes that they really need help with that you wouldn't necessarily know because you just like hear official visits or like you hear about recruits and you just think that it's like this process where they just come to the school a couple of times and just choose the school or like choose to go somewhere else. But I really just help my bosses like flow smoother through what they have to get through. I don't know if that really like makes sense, but like I kind of do some of the busy work that they don't always get to like put more time and effort into because they're so busy trying to really make that connection with the recruits and the families. I'm more hands-on to like the operations and they're more hands-on with the connection themselves, if that makes sense.
And kind
Was the
of follow up on
recruiting,
that.
sorry,
Go ahead.
was the recruiting process something that like you always knew that you wanted to do when you were like deciding to transfer? Or like was it just something that like you found out about when you first got to Georgia?
I would say so, like how Maddox had mentioned that I had other internships. When I was in the process of transferring, I had mentioned to people that were at the internships, like other people that had already graduated, and they were saying that they have a great recruiting program and like just a football program overall. And so, like, I had seen stuff online about Georgia's recruiting program because I think they have like the number one, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, or you know what I'm saying. But I think they have like one of the number one recruiting programs in the country. And so it stuck out to me because I would see it like I went to a high school that did a lot of recruiting. So I was familiar with Georgia's recruiting process, but I never considered it something that I personally wanted to pursue. I wasn't necessarily interested in the recruiting process. I was more so interested in like social media and like at first PR, but that's like the internships that I did do that kind of helped me like redirect the career path I wanted to go to. But I will say like it has shocked me in ways and like really opened my mind to like potential careers just even in the collegiate field. Cause I think I really only was like viewing it from the standpoint of like, okay, I want to graduate and go to the league. Like I want to graduate and I want to get a job in the league. And like it seems like it's not easy because I don't know if people would perceive it as that, but like when I was at my internships, it didn't seem like a super overwhelming thing, but it actually is extremely hard to get like taken up by a team and then want to have you on. So you do kind of have to have those things that set you apart. And I feel like Georgia football is something that can go on my resume that sticks out to colleagues because they have that number one recruiting program, like I said, and like they do have a lot of athletes that do end up going to the league, which like that doesn't necessarily play a role in like my career choice and like if they hire me specifically, but it definitely does play a role because like what draws people to Georgia is like that recruiting process itself.
For sure, for sure.
Cool. Kind of going back, talking about your bosses and how they build connections with athletes. How do you think they balance kind of professionalism while being like relatable?
I would say my bosses are like some of the funniest people I've ever met, y'all. Like they make me laugh every single shift. Like there's no filter. They're working on it though. That's
She
something
was
that they're working
playing, she like I was like it was one of her game days and she was playing like 2K with her
on.
boss and I was like, what?
In the like recruiting lounge at the facility. It's crazy. Like my boss is like touchdowns, anything, like they're running in circles and screaming. Like there's really, I think they try and make it the process like of the visits. Cause like on game days, we have like not very few, but we have like select official visits and more people are there on unofficial visits, if that makes sense. So like they will like have that a bit more professionalism with the official visits because like they're going to the school, they want to like keep up that mentality, that relationship and stuff. But it's very like I think they want it to seem like it's a welcoming and environment to come into, and they want you to be encouraged to like kind of relax, like be yourself, like know that this is like obviously a serious thing that you're like coming to, but like we want you to know that you're wanted here, and like it's a lot more laid back, I would say, than like most people would probably perceive their other bosses. Like my bosses, I would say some more than others. I have like four total, but like there's three girls and one guy, and like the guy is so chill, but the girls are like on a whole nother level. Like they're just so fun and outgoing that it like kind of doesn't take away from that professionalism because they know how to balance it like when it's time, but they try and make it less of a stressful process, I think, not only for student interns but also like recruits and families themselves, because it is a stressful process, especially with the NIL stuff now. Like it just takes everything to a whole nother level, I feel like.
If you wouldn't mind, do you mind explaining the kind of difference between an official visit and an unofficial visit and what that looks like for an athlete?
From my understanding, because I don't really have a lot of hands-on like input into that area. Like I'm more so like a game day special. Like I really just work game days, home game days. But for the official visits, a lot of it is paid. So like they pay for the car, they pay for where they stay, and then they have like a bit of a more structured visit. Like their visit is probably more than just like coming for the games. But those unofficial visits are like when people can come to like our home games, and like certain games will have a lot more recruits than others. Like what game did we have? The Alabama game was obviously so many recruits and family members, and it just like takes it to a whole nother level. But um, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought, but I'm gonna find it.
Good.
But I think that the unofficial visit is a little bit more laid back in the sense that like they're also not funding. Like the school
Sure.
is funding for their visit, so it's like a little bit more of like a choice by the athlete or the recruit themselves than it is like the school.
Yeah.
Kind of going back, you were talking about like your bosses and how they're super laid back and it's definitely like different than you expected. What kind of skills do you think that they were looking for when hiring you and that are like most valuable for someone who's looking to kind of break into a similar field that you're in?
Okay. For this field of like, I'm just gonna put it categorized as like communications in football, because I feel like recruiting, it's a lot of talking, communicating. So obviously, I would say like that's a good word to summarize it all. But they really want someone that has like a very, I would say flexible is a good thing. I've had my position moved around for game days. Like since I came here in spring, I've moved to like three different areas. And now I'm like in the same one consistently because I think that it just like they know which areas suit people's personalities best. But I think something that me and my coworkers have in common is that we're very open. And I'm not saying in the sense that like, oh, I share everything about my life, but like it's I'm trying to think of the word, but it's like welcoming. I don't want to keep using that same word, but it is like a bit of a welcoming spirit. But I think that, did you want a skill or characteristic? I'm sorry.
I mean, either one. I think I said skill, but either honestly, I feel
Like
like same idea.
yeah, kind of skills. I would say like being able to talk to people is really big. I think that that's something that like, oh, obviously you're going into a communication, feel like you need to know how to talk to people, but like adjusting that communication from like different ages. I think that's also something that I've learned through my other internships because I was the youngest person in the room when I was at those higher level internships. But just being able to fluctuate and knowing when's a professional time and when's a time to kind of be laid back. And then like versatility is something that I was like, I guess I was trying to get to. Like, they want you to be flexible and versatile in different environments and be able to speak to coaches, be able to speak to family members, be able to speak to athletes, but like knowing that balance between professionalism and that kind of laid back sense. And I think that another thing is like mm, being coachable, but that's like also being flexible. I'm just saying the same things in different fonts, but
I feel like what you're saying definitely makes sense though, based on kind of like how you said your bosses are. Because obviously you said like you were playing like 2K before a game the other day, but like when there's official visits, like your coaches are very, or not coaches, your bosses, they're very on it and like with it. So I think that definitely like what you're saying definitely makes sense. And it seems like it's for sure the culture of like kind of what you do. Kind of switching gears a little bit, going back to obviously the transfer from UG or from Clemson to UGA. Do you feel like since you did obviously make that transfer, the coursework that you've had in your classes at UGA has kind of helped to prepare you in any way for the more hands-on roles you've kind of started to experience in your position?
I would definitely say yes. The new certificate or like minor that I'm doing, the sports media one, I'm taking my first class right now, and it's Introduction to Sports Writing and Journalism, and or sports writing and reporting. And it's so helpful. Like we actually have to go to sports events at the school, write about them like in live time, submit them like right after the assignment. And I think stuff like that, and like being put under pressure, but also being put in a position where you're trusted and viewed as someone that can like give out good work is like really encouraging, and it's inspiring to also see my classmates and like they offer so many opportunities here. And I know that was something that I loved about Clemson too, is that there's so many resources available, and I think that people don't always know about them. And I think that UGA does a good job at like forcing us to be put in situations where we have to utilize those resources that are available to us. And I think that just the School of Grady, which is like our journalism school, is like really big on like hands-on experience, internships, and like different things that like actually allow you to put into practice what you're learning in the classroom, which I really value and appreciate. Because like this class is so challenging for me, I will say, but it's like a good type of challenging because it teaches me more about my strengths and my weaknesses in terms of communication, because there's so many aspects of it, like the writing aspect and the verbal aspect are very both equally important. And so even though I may not want to go into like writing, sports writing, it's still very like telling of that, and it confirms it for me rather than me just having this like understanding that I don't want to do sports writing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I get what you mean also about kind of like being able to have those hands-on experiences and like testing out what you want to do versus like what you maybe don't want to do, like you were saying. I think that's definitely like valuable to also the experiences that you're doing like out of the classroom to kind of know like where you want to go within there. So I think that's super cool.
Yeah, kind of adding on to like the whole transfer side of things and the hands-on experiences. You kind of touched on this earlier, but how did you first get involved with the Georgia football program, and like what does your day-to-day role look like?
So I would say one thing I encourage all of you to do is, because it's benefited me in literally all of my internships, is make connections. Like you never know the type of connection that is going to lead you to a job opportunity that you may have never had the opportunity to experience if you didn't make those strong connections that you do with people. And I'm blessed enough and fortunate enough where my dad is a super big connection of mine because he does work in football. And so that's how I got like my name relayed to them, but they kind of reached out to me and were like, this is kind of what we do. We'd love to have you on the team, because they had just lost a lot of people that were graduating. So like they were interested in like having new people. And I had those other internships under my belt, which kind of gave me some credibility, which I was grateful for, which also is another connection through my dad. But I will say, like, I've made connections like on my own through other internships. And I like, it's not just about making that connection, but also nurturing it. I still talk to the people that I had an internship with at the Chiefs. Like, they're relatively younger, but I would say it just depends on the team also, like in terms of age wise, but they're younger. And so, like, we do have a little bit more laid back conversations when I reach out, but I'm still like keeping those connections like connected in a sense, because it does matter. Like if you're showing that you want to be involved in some type of way, they can help you in a variety of areas, because you never know like the school that someone could have went to, or like who they may know at another institution. Like a lot of people that I was working with over the summer, like the not this previous summer, but the one before that, a lot of them graduated from the University of Georgia. And I would have never known that had I not been asking questions and trying to make a more meaningful connection, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And then you kind of are touching about how you have all these connections and experiences. So, out of all like these experiences that you've had, what's a moment that you're really proud of?
That's a good question. I would say a moment that I'm proud of. Well, I'll start with what I wasn't proud of because it led to me being proud. But I really did not want to go to my internship. I interned with the PR staff at the Kansas City Chiefs. And so I like right before y'all, like I just had like a whole meltdown. I was like, I don't want to go. Like, I'm going to go be in a dorm the month before I start school. Like, I don't want to do that because at the Chiefs, they like all stay in a dorm. Like, Coach Reed stays in a dorm, all the players stay in a dorm. Like, it's just everybody. It's not just like you. And I was like, this is going to be miserable. Like, I was like, I'm not doing this. And then my parents were like, you can't just back out of something because you don't want to do it. Like you signed up for it. So like you're going. Like it's not a, oh, you don't want to go anymore. Like, cool, we won't make you go. Like, no, you're going. So they forced me to go. And it was actually one of the best learning experiences I ever had, not just because like I will say, like, I'm not interested in PR at all anymore. Like I think that it's a really cool field, but for me personally, it's not something that I could wake up every single day and be happy that this is my career path that I chose to take. But I wouldn't have known that had I not done a second internship with PR because it's very different at different places. And I think that's also something to make note of is that like you can experience something in one field and go somewhere and it be completely different, even though they have the same title. And I think that having that mindset and like learning that for myself just like allowed me to be more optimistic about potential opportunities that could cross my path. But I would say something that I was the most proud of was like the way that I carried myself at the internship because it was like really challenging for me. I had like, I'm not going to obviously say anyone's name, but I had like difficulties with people that I was working with at the internship. And it felt really combating on top of already like not really wanting to be there. And like the course, like work that I was doing was so different and it was like really challenging. But I think I still had a lot of resilience through the process. And it just like, I'm proud of the way I just continue to keep going through with it because it like taught me so much about what I want to do career wise. It taught me a lot about different skill sets. It like expanded them in a way that I didn't even know you could expand them. And it taught me more about myself and like how to approach different situations in life, not just about careers, but also like in terms of speaking to people in general.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just kind of putting yourself out there and good things will come.
Yes, thanks.
And we're almost short on time. So Elizabeth, do you want to ask your question? Because I feel like it's like exactly what she's talking about, and then we can wrap everything up.
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, I wanted to go back to you talking about like your connections and everything. So, my good friend Lee Taylor, I'm not sure if you know her.
Love
Yes.
Wait, I'm gonna tell her.
Yeah. Yes, please do. She's amazing. But I wanted to ask you, first of all, a little bit about like how the connections with the like students that you're with, like how those relationships are. So that's my first
So
question,
when I
if you want to go
first
ahead.
came in the spring, it was a lot of older students because obviously a lot of them had been there for a couple of years and then they were graduating. So like literally, I think there was only like I want to say about five of us left when we were entering the fall this season. And so we got a whole new staff. And so we had this staff meeting and it's like all these new girls. And I will say that the adjustment has just been so nice and refreshing because I feel like it can be a little bit intimidating sometimes when you're working with people and then it switches like out of nowhere. But for me, it was like working with new people again. So I wasn't really getting like a rhythm, I would say, of a certain staff. But it's been so nice because like since they're new and since I'm relatively new, we can learn off of each other. And I think that's such a big thing. Like, even no matter how long you've been with the company or doing an internship, you can still learn from other people and people can learn from you. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing, especially since we're so young. Like, it may seem like this is like such a big part of our lives, but we do have so much left. And I think that like building these connections now will even benefit me like in the future because I see that some of these girls definitely have a future in the sports world. And it's just been like such a lovely experience because they're all so nice, especially Lee. I love her. She's so sweet.
Of
But
course.
like everybody is really nice and it's like really refreshing because I've worked in environments where I work with like all girls and it's like it's just like I feel like us girls on here can say that it can be a little tense at times and it's just never felt that way with them and I just really appreciate that.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, she's absolutely the best. And like I agree, those connections that you make, especially with your peers, like you can learn so much or like even more than you learn from the people above you. Okay, so our last question is kind of going what you were talking about earlier and like how you knew that you didn't want to do PR based off those two internships that you had. So like what made you go into like the media aspect, or like were you just trying out a bunch of different things, and like what directions do you want to go in?
So I think that I will say one thing that I encourage people to do. I know I'm like giving out all these suggestions like I'm some professor, but I would say trying it because you never know until you try. And like I said, like I was literally crying and saying I didn't want to go. And I'm so happy I did go because it like told me more about what I did and didn't want to do. There's aspects that I learned about through just observing other positions while I was there. And so like it opens your eyes and you can like take that opportunity to talk with other people. Cause at least for me, when I was at my internship, I was so ask questions, like always ask questions. No question is a dumb question. I think the only dumb question is one that isn't asked because you never know like the type of conversation it could unravel or lead to and like what it could give you insight to, potentially even a career option. And so like I think I'm leaning more towards like because I sorry, I was getting a call. But because I um knew that I didn't want to do PR, I one thing that I always fell back on was I want to make connections with people and I want to help people. That was just something that like when looking for a career, I was like, I don't really have like, a firm foundation of like what I want to do, but I know that I want to help people and build connections. And I actually just had a meeting with my boss literally on Monday about potential careers and like what made them choose between collegiate and professional level. And they were just like kind of pointing out the differences to me and like saying that my personality was really suited to the recruiting area if that was something that I was interested in. And like it's so crazy because I probably never would have thought about it had I never transferred or like had to go to a different school and like force myself to be put in a new position. And it is just really all about like putting yourself out there, kind of like Ryan and I were like saying in his question, but like it really does fall back on like doing. Sometimes you have to do the things you don't want to do to find out what you do want to do. And I think that because I'm like, I had an idea in my head, I was like also open to, I had an idea in my head, but then like through my experiences, it like led me to something that I think that I'm a little bit more passionate about. But I wouldn't have known that had I never tried PR. I'd probably still be trying to pursue PR. Like if I hadn't actually had that hands-on experience. But I think that it all just falls back onto like the main things you would be willing to do every single day that you wake up. And for me, that's like building connections with people, like having meaningful conversations and also helping people. I love to help people. So
Sorry, I could not find the unmute button. Um, But Kennedy, thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time out of your Hollow weekend, the start of Hollow weekend, to come and talk to us a little about what you do at UGA and just kind of get us in that mindset. We've only really had student athletes, so this was a great turn to like get the like almost background side, especially from you because you have all these amazing experiences. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
of course, I love talking to each of you. You guys had really good questions, and I would say stay curious. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Like people love when you ask them questions, especially about what they do. Like people love those types of questions. So
I also just have to throw it out there. I mean, everything you said, I thinking to anyone listening, they should take it because like usually I just listen to people named Kennedy and what they have to say.
yes,
So I just
Kennedy's
Right.
Kennedy's
Right.
what they're talking about. So
yes,
Anyways, it was great
I
having
agree.
you, Kennedy.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Okay, after hearing what you all heard about Kendi and her like experience, what do you all think like the behind the scenes jobs? What do you think deserves more credibility or visibility? Because a lot of times we just see like the final product. So what do you think needs to have more recognition within the aspect of sports?
I kind of feel like almost what you talked about with like the recruiting side of things. I feel like we obviously see like the forefront of like the coaches and the staff, like them recruiting, but kind of the things that Kennedy was saying she does kind of in the background, like scheduling things and like planning like official and unofficial visits, like all that kind of stuff. I think that definitely like deserves more recognition because kind of like nobody ever fully sees the background things. And I feel like that's almost the reason they deserve more recognition because like you're probably not supposed to know what's going on in the background, but there's definitely a lot, it seems like.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Like we only see a commitment post on Instagram or
Mhm.
something like that, but we don't really know what kind of went into that commitment, like behind the scenes and everything with what Kennedy does.
Yeah, also kind of adding to the commitment post side of things, I think like the creative side of people, like the videographers or people who make graphics and that kind of stuff, like you might look at it on Instagram, you see it for 2 seconds, like, oh, that's really cool, and keep scrolling. But somebody could have spent 4 hours trying to make that graphic or trying to capture one shot that's a 10-second clip on Instagram and all that stuff. So I think a lot of that stuff goes like unnoticed or kind of under the radar a little bit.
I definitely agree with that one. That's my older sister. She's a graphic design major, and like also you're working on things for like 5 hours, and it's just one like little video or like one little post that, like you said, I'm sure people are just like scrolling by, like, oh, that's super cool. But, like they definitely put a lot of work into it that like is kind of behind the scenes as well.
This like whole class kind of has taught me that because I've always been like an editor. Like I don't know if you guys had like fake YouTube channels, but mine wasn't fake. Like I actually would post stuff on YouTube. And so like even editing like these podcasts, like something that finding like a lion roar audio, like that even is taking me 20 minutes to have to find that, have to like convert it to fit onto like the video file, all of that stuff. And I think that if honestly that needs more visibility is all these editors and all these people who do like, I mean, like when you think of like official visits, I don't know if you've ever seen the players like they'll put on or like when they're trying to be recruited or whatever, they'll like put on the like uniforms or like they'll make them like take a video or like take all these photos. Like even that, so much behind the scenes work goes into that that I feel like isn't talked about that like should be because it's not like it takes 5 seconds, you know?
Yeah, I also um like another kind of job in sport talking about the PR stuff and how like I could not imagine working in PR like a day in my life. That sounds actually like kind of miserable to me because you're dealing with so much crisis management. Like every day you're just on
Yeah.
the clock doing so much stuff. And like I guess people don't really see that part of it because they just see like, oh, like a player did something bad and then there's like a press release. But like internally, like that's a huge deal. So those kind of
Yeah, you
jobs
gotta
I
try
also
to get
think,
on
yeah,
essentially.
literally.
That's Yeah, I've taken like some PR classes here, and it's definitely like so much more than I thought it was. With like all the press, like there's so much you have to prepare for like a press conference. Like it's so much more work than I thought it was.
Yeah, for sure. PR is definitely, I think, one of the more chaotic roles in sports.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Kind of like switching gears a little bit. I know Kennedy was talking about her transfer from Clemson to UGA. How do you guys think that kind of a school's culture can influence the athletic media coverage?
I think going like straight into ACC versus SEC is a big topic. Like, obviously, Clemson's probably the biggest name in the ACC when it comes to football, and then Georgia is like the biggest or one of the biggest in the SEC. So it's like you think about funding, you think about all these things, automatically Georgia's games are going to get more coverage because they're playing other SEC teams versus Clemson. Like, most of our games won't get as much coverage because they're against other ACC teams.
Yeah. I think it also depends kind of what sport you're talking about. If we're going to talk about football, like Clemson, Georgia, like they're going to be the media coverage is going to be heavy football, but that's going to completely change when you start talking about like a North Carolina or a Duke or somebody like that, a Kansas, somebody who's really good at basketball, and their kind of media coverage is going to be all about that.
I think it could be like agreeing with that. It's more about the sport and less about the culture because all these big schools, like they have a top tier culture for that specific sport, like Georgia, Alabama. Everyone wants to go there for football. Same with us. Normally, people want to come here for football, but
Not next year.
Yeah, I was about to
yeah,
say.
next year better be. I mean, I don't know how you could be worse than what happened this year. What's happening this year, but. I think it tailors more to the sport. Like, yeah, like you said, people are going to want to go to Duke, Chapel Hill, Kansas, Kentucky because for basketball because that's what they excel at normally. So,
No, I definitely agree. And I feel like in past episodes we've talked a lot about like the coverage of like sports, like bigger sports, smaller sports, all of that. And I feel like that definitely like they cover the sports that are bigger because they want more athletes to come for those sports. So like they want those programs to look better. I think that's definitely something notable.
I know I'm just gonna dive into this question because I actually want to hear your guys' response real fast. If you did have to transfer, like what part of Clemson sports culture would you miss the most? Because I know Kennedy, like, I'm not gonna lie, she comes down almost like once or twice every month, like for a weekend or whatever. So it's like, yes, she transferred, but Athens is an hour and like 15 minutes away, and she still comes down for the things that she misses. So like what do you think if you guys like transferred? What would be something you're like, dang it, I'm missing out on this back at Clemson?
I
I
think
don't
it's
know.
kind
I
of.
think,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Ryan.
good. I think like the all in thing here is actually very real. I think everybody is very committed. It's like for football specifically. Every Saturday, everyone's tailgating, everyone's committed, everyone's rooting for the team. Like even though we're not that good, like for the SMU game, I'm like, I'm ready. I want to see us win. It doesn't mean anything, but I'm still gonna go out there and cheer with my loudest. You know, I just feel like everybody's always committed every single week, no matter what. But
Yeah, I was kind of gonna say the same thing. I think it would depend, like what school you transferred to, because you could look back and go, Clemson's fan base is pretty diehard. You can definitely go on social media right now and see that your fan base is pretty diehard. Even talking about Dabo or any of the coaches, to be honest, or any of the players. But it's just because, these fans care. Their kind of lives revolve around Saturday football. So,
That's, I feel like going off like people's lives revolving around Saturday football. Even like Saturday mornings, you'll wake up, it's like 8 a.m. Everyone's tailgates are set up. Like everybody nearby is here. Like I definitely would agree with what both you guys are saying. Just truly, like everyone who comes to Clemson loves Clemson so much. And I think that's such like it makes everything like that much more fun. Even when we are like losing, people are still having a great time just because of how much they love Clemson.
Yeah, for sure. And like with, I guess, the all-in aspect, it's like anytime you say or you like see the paw somewhere, you're like, you say go Tigers. All of that.
Yeah.
Like I can be all the way across the country or like even abroad, and like people would know that I went to Clemson because I am proud to wear the paw. So I think that that aspect is something that I would definitely miss.
For sure. Like even I flew home yesterday and I always try like not to wear my Clemson stuff in Atlanta just because I'm like I feel like wrong territory. But I wore a sweatshirt yesterday and I think I had like four people come up to me and like either they popped a joke about like what's happening with K, da da da, or they're just saying, "Oh, you went to Clemson, like that's super neat." There's a huge there's just like Clemson fans everywhere and I feel like that is kind of rare. So, yeah.
sure.
Um, all right, that wraps up another episode of Chalk Talks. Huge thank you again to Kennedy Farmer for joining us and kind of sharing and diving into what it's really like working behind the scenes in college and pro football from Clemson to UGA and beyond. If you guys like this episode, make sure to follow Chalk Talks on YouTube and keep up with us on Instagram on the Sports News Media podcast for updates on our next guest. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Tigers.
there we
Woo!
go.
Yeah.